Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is certainly an honor for me to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Having been introduced to the public at a young age, our distinguished guest traces her roots from an illustrious line of statesmen and patriots. She is the second youngest in a brood of five of DBP chairman and former Foreign Affairs Secretary and former Senator Alberto G. Romulo and Miss Lovely Texon Romulo. She is she's also the grandniece of former UN General Assembly President Carlos P. Romulo. Moreover, she's also the great-granddaughter of Katipunan Dr. Pio Valenzuela, after whom Valenzuela City was named after. She attended the University of the Philippines and pursued an undergraduate and a master's degree in economics. She was a former lecturer at the UP School of Economics from 1994 to 2006. She also served as an economic consultant at the HUDCC, or Housing and Urban Development Coordination Council, from 2001 to 2002, and the Presidential Management Staff from 2005 to 2006, and was also the Deputy Cabinet Secretary at the Office of the President in 2006. She was appointed as Undersecretary at the Department of Agriculture from 2007 to 2018, where she was designated to handle special concerns, administration and finance, and agribusiness and marketing. She assumed office as the Secretary of the Department of Tourism on May 14, 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome the Honorable Secretary of the Department of Tourism, Secretary Bernadette Romulo-Puyat.
Secretary Ramon Lopez of the Department of Trade and Industry, Secretary William Dar of the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Sammy Lim, Founding President and Chairman Emeritus of the Philippine Franchise Association, Mr. Richard Sanz, Chairman of PFA, Ms. Cheryl Quintana, President of PFA, the Board of Trustees of PFA, Mr. Eric Luchanco, SVP and Head of Business Banking of BPI, Ms. Marie Cris San Diego, BPI Foundation Executive Director, Mr. Jovi Hernandez, Senior Vice President of PLDT Enterprise, Mr. Mitch Locsin, First President of PLDT Enterprise, Ms. Nina Aguas, Executive Chairman of the Insular Life Assurance Company, representatives from the World Franchise Council and Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation, colleagues in government, members of the Diplomatic Corps, our friends in media. Good day. On behalf of the Philippine Department of Tourism, I extend my thanks to the Philippine Franchise Association for this kind invitation to speak at the Franchise Asia Philippines 2020 virtual conference. This morning, I shall outline the Department of Tourism's programs and plans under the new normal. Against this current backdrop, I am pleased that this forum is taking a positive and forward-looking stance by taking the theme, Pivoting Towards the Golden Age of Franchising. The DOT shares your optimism as we look forward to the eventual end to this global health crisis. However, we cannot just wait for that to happen. There is still much work to be done to ensure better days ahead. Tourism has been among the hardest hit industry. According to the UN World Tourism Organization, the current crisis could lead to an annual decline of between 60 to 80% compared to figures from the previous year. Tourism is a major component of the nation's gross domestic product. It contributed 12.7% or 2.48 trillion pesos to the Philippine economy and provided employment opportunities to 5.71 million Filipinos in 2019. It was crucial that we took swift measures to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the industry, most especially its effect on our stakeholders, majority of whom come from micro, small, and medium enterprises. From the onset of the pandemic, we have been in constant communication with our stakeholders to determine the impact of the pandemic, but more importantly, formulate measures moving forward. In this regard, the DOT crafted the Tourism Response and Recovery Plan as our master plan to revive and begin the recovery of the industry. Under the TRRP, we identified the following projects to quickly address the impact of the pandemic and drew up action plans for the industry's recovery in the short to medium term, including the provision of assistance to tourist travelers affected by the pandemic, capacity building for tourism workers, financial assistance to sustain tourism businesses and employment, policy support to help financial and business solvency, tourism investment promotion, development and enforcement of new normal standards, and the development of travel bubbles and green corridors to restart tourism activities. Apart from these action plans in the TRRP, the DOT is working with the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank on the Transforming Communities Towards Resilient, Inclusive, and Sustainable Tourism, or TOURIST program. The DOT's vision for the TOURIST program is to develop and promote a sustainable tourism industry with the active participation of all stakeholders, create an inclusive tourism industry that benefits local communities, and ensure a resilient tourism industry amidst threats. Under the program, both the World Bank and ADB are providing loan and technical assistance to develop and manage several tourist destinations in a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable manner through the upgrading of local infrastructure, local economic development, disaster and crisis management, and policy reforms. The pilot tourist destinations are Coron and El Nido in Palawan, Bohol, Siargao, Davao, and Siquijor. Given the current pandemic, the DOT tourist program is placing emphasis on helping the mentioned destinations recover and bounce back through the provision of sanitation or health infrastructure and equipment, and the training of tourism industry stakeholders to adapt to the new normal. With this only an estimate, our main strategy for our local tourism industry to recover will be spurring domestic tourism activity. It's frequently overlooked that domestic tourism is in fact what drives our industry. Domestic expenditure accounts for 3.14 trillion pesos during their nearly 110 million domestic trips recorded in 2019. Of the 12.7% of GDP contribution of tourism that I mentioned earlier, 10.8% of that is from domestic tourism. If we can successfully reopen our destinations to local tourism, I am confident that local tourists will gladly book trips once again, putting our industry firmly back on the road to recovery. The DOT recently conducted the Philippine Travel Survey for us to better prepare the industry in the reopening of tourism. The results indicate the strong desire of Filipinos to resume leisure travel once restrictions are lifted, showing that 77% of the respondents are willing to travel domestically even in the absence of a proven vaccine. The survey results also indicate a greater probability of respondents traveling domestically within 6 months from the lifting of restrictions versus the potential for international travel. In the same survey, 96% of respondents expressed that health and safety will be their primary concern in the resumption of leisure and travel. Bearing this in mind, the DOT is looking at ways to gradually and cautiously reopen tourism while instituting new standards of health and hygiene protocols for the well-being of travelers, workers, and the local community. Part of our campaign to support new health and safety guidelines is the pivot towards contactless transactions. The use of digital technologies in various business processes, such as bookings and payments, contribute to efforts of minimizing face-to-face engagements. As part of these efforts, the department partnered with Talino Venture Labs, a local startup incubator, to provide digital solutions to the problems or challenges posed by the new normal. We have already rolled out SafePass Express, an incident-managed platform for accommodation establishments and restaurants that automates space capacity planning, contact tracing, and enforcement of health protocols. We also have rolled out Eat In Express, an application that helps restaurants with digital ordering, kitchen management, and contactless transactions. Both of these apps are available for free to all DOT accredited establishments. So if you haven't tried them out yet, please have a go and discover how it can help your business. While the reopening of international travel is one of the DOT's goals during this pandemic, the more immediate task is to reopen tourism to domestic travelers. For now, interregional travel for tourism purposes is quite limited, but they may soon change with our proposed domestic travel bubbles. Over the past few months, we have been closely coordinating with the various local government units and stakeholders nationwide for the eventual reopening of tourism, with travel bubbles as one of the most viable among the proposed solutions. One of the travel bubbles that may soon be operational is in Northern Luzon. Last Tuesday, the DOT launched the Ridge to Reef Corridor Plan, a key strategy being explored to ensure the gradual and safe reopening of interregional travel between Baguio City and the provinces of Region 1, namely La Union, Pangasinan, Ilocos Sur, and Ilocos Norte. The target date is this October 1. The Ridge to Reef Plan will allow residents to travel exclusively within Region 1 and the city of Baguio, a safe corridor for tourism managed through innovative border control measures and policies. Boracay Island will further open its doors to more local tourists on October 1 and signals the continued resurgence of domestic tourism nationwide. Targeting a safe and calibrated resumption of tourism business, several measures have been prescribed by the task force that include tests before travel, requiring a negative RT-PCR result 2 to 3 days prior travel to Boracay. Also, travelers will be advised to go on a strict quarantine immediately after their swab test until time of travel to the island. Since June, we have rolled out guidelines on minimum safety and health protocols for hotel accommodations, tourist land transport services, restaurants, MICE facilities, island and beach destinations, travel and tour operations, and diving. These institutional measures will allow us to meet, if not exceed, the expectations of our traveler safety, paving the way toward a more sustainable and resilient tourism industry. Thank you once again to the Philippine Franchise Association for the opportunity to address your members at this forum as your organization begins its pivot to the golden age of franchising. As I bring this presentation to a close, I would like to thank all of you in the private sector for your trust in us during this past few months. And as we begin the recovery process, the Department of Tourism is looking forward to your continued support and valued cooperation. We have been dreaming about travel for quite some time now. It's time to wake up.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Secretary Bernadette Romulo-Puyat, for that brief but truly very informative and inspiring message, for sharing the efforts of the Department of Tourism to restart our tourism activities. And of course, as you heard, there are safety protocols and measures in place, be it from testing to strict quarantines before actual traveling, and that's domestic traveling. How domestic tourism truly is a big part of our economy, and I particularly like how they have innovated with the use of apps